going to continue the discussion section of the evening. I'm going to ask each of you if you have a question for an individual on the other side. And again, we'd like to hear a question put to the person on the other side. And first I'm going to ask Paul Marshall. Do you have a question for one of your adversaries here?
Yes, Professor Bulliet. In arguing, you opposed our use of the word hegemony and said when, say, 30% or so of British Muslim youth want to kill someone who rejects Islam or believes they should be killed, you said that's not a majority. Hegemony equals a majority. But would you not agree that in the regimes we're talking about, if one is talking about Egypt or Saudi Arabia or a vast number of other countries, the majority of the people may oppose something, but surely you would agree that currently the Saudi Arabian government is hegemonic, the Iranian government is hegemonic in terms of what shapes that country.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, yes, I mean,
no, just stop.
The British, the British government isn't, however, in that category. If you are going to say that the government in any autocratic state, whether it is Saudi Arabia or Iran or Egypt or Tunisia or any of the other myriad autocratic states, that the government calls the shots, yeah, the government does call the shots, and therefore you could say that the government has a dominating or hegemonic role. But if you want to go down that route, then you find that most Muslims in the world aren't living in those states that you're worried about. They're living in states that are governed by nationalist, secular, or also self-proclaimed secular autocracies. So, you can't just single out Saudi Arabia and Iran and say this is the whole of the law and the prophets. It just doesn't work that way.
Question asked and answered. Reza Aslan, do you have a question for the other side? Someone on the other side.
Yes, I'll ask this question of David. I want to remind David, first of all, that according to Freedom's House definition of democracies, the United States wasn't a democracy until 1960. But in that regard, Rice University 2 years ago did the most comprehensive study of American religiosity ever done. And in that study, they found that not only do a third of Americans, 1 out of 3, refer to themselves as evangelical Christians, but 46%, that's almost half, of American Christians believe that the Constitution and American laws should be changed in order to match Christian law and Christian values. So I imagine your response would be, now do you or do you not then believe that America is under the hegemony of evangelical Christians? So therefore we are dominated by radicals, correct?
Well, David Gartenstein-Ross.
That would be a very relevant and interesting question if this were a different resolution. In the end, the resolution isn't whether the U.S. is dominated by radicals or not.
No, I'm just curious about your answer.
We have one question.
And looking at the specifics of it, it was 46% of 23%. I think, I don't know, that seems to be about 11.5%. My math could be a little bit off. You kind of went on for a little while there. But what I will say is evidence of hegemony is when...
No, 46% of 300 million, not 46%
of 300 million think that. Well, I'd have to see the study. And one thing that I can say is that I think that in the evangelical community, which I'm a part of, there's a lot of kind of pushback against, you're going on and on about the AKP, and I actually agree with you on the AKP. I don't think they should be banned. But there's disagreement here, but I don't think they should be banned.
No, I just say Turkey.
Okay. In Turkey, the AKP is a Turkish Islamist party.
But with respect to the United States, within the evangelical community, there's a lot of pushback against religion simply being pushed out of the sphere, the public sphere, 100%. That's the way the First Amendment has been interpreted for some time. And I would say that some of the disturbing poll results are not evidence of radicalism, but instead this pushback.
So it's not
the question is answered.
Actually, it wasn't.
And well,
it was, Reza, but I appreciate your
you
verdict
haven't
on
answered
it.
your question,
It is
Reza.
a sign of hegemony, or it is not a sign of hegemony? 46% wanting to.
Well, actually, I answered it in my very first sentence, which is
upon.
that the question is not relevant, and I don't know what way they'd want to do it. I haven't seen the poll results. I can't judge.
Thank you, David Gartenstein-Ross. The question now, Asra Nomani, you can put a question to one of the opponents of the motion.
Well, Edina said earlier that to suggest that radicals dominate, as is our proposition there, Islam is like saying that murderers define America. So 22 countries are the number of countries that declare that Islam is their state religion. Of those, 14 say that conversion of Islam is illegal. The good professor suggested that, in fact, we are correct that Islamic law in Saudi Arabia and all of these other countries suggest inequity. So my question to you, thank you,
Good point.
is the laws are defined by ideology that represents inequity. Most of the countries are governed by Islamic states in the name of Islam. How do you then argue that the excuse is autocracies, that the equivalent is that as if murderers were running America?
These countries are not, the leadership does not even proclaim to be running the country in the name of Islam. Again,
well, they have Islam as their state religion, and they have Islamic law.
You've asked the question. The answer?
The Islamic law has been on the books for a period of time in these countries. The leaders who are coming into the leadership are dictators who are following upon the heels of dictators and who are supported by, international forces. The fact that these laws exist on the books are indeed still problematic. No one on our side is denying any of that. These realities certainly exist on the ground. However, we have to look at where they are enforced and when they are enforced. Because even where Islamic law, we try to take Sharia and turn it into as if it's the Sharia, that it's a one-size-fits-all Sharia that exists in all of these countries, nothing could be further from the truth. There is different shapes and sizes and flavors of Sharia that exist in these different countries. So we cannot pretend that they are all the same. So in these situations, in some of these countries, even those rules around apostasy have long been unenforced. We have to look at where this rise has come from. And a lot of it, in my mind, is a very reactionary action that has taken place. And again, in no way defines what is taking place on the ground with the people. I do not know why we are once again, over and over again, denying the realities of the people on the ground who make up the dominant force within Islam.